Welcome to Hot Chips 18. Panel discussion. Who owns the living room?
Okay, let's start with the last session of today. It's the panel session titled, Who Owns the Living Room? I guess a long time ago, life was relatively simple. You would have a radio or a TV, and that provided the entertainment in your living room. More recently, we are convinced by companies that we have to have a PC, they call it media center, to provide our entertainment. We see that game consoles are actually developing in media centers as well. That makes it very interesting. And traditional PC companies are now aggressively marketing also consumer devices like television sets. I think both Dell and HP are doing that. So that kind of raises the question, how do traditional consumer electronic companies like, for example, a Sony or a Philips consumer electronics handle this threat on their turf? And how do traditional PC companies try to enter this new domain? Because they all seem to agree there's a lot of money to be made in our living room. So that's the topic that we like to discuss here. We found that very interesting as a program committee. During lunch, one of my colleagues, one of my smart-ass colleagues said, like, well, the answer to the question, who owns the living room, in your case is simple. Like all other rooms in your home, it's owned by your wife. Now, that is not the thing that I'd like to discuss over here. And as you can see, my wife is not part of the panel. We have found 7 other people to take part in this discussion. And maybe it's a good idea when I mention your name that you wave to the audience that at least know who is who. So we have got Glen from Sony, Bill Curtis from Dell, Alan Messer from Samsung, Professor Yamada from the Kyushu Institute of Technology in Japan. I've been told we can call you Q. Yes. Yes, yeah. To make it easy. James Akiyama from Intel. Bob Brummer from Microsoft. And Eugene Shteyn from HP. Formerly Philips Consumer Electronics. But I think that's proof of how fast things can change in this domain. So they will all be given 6 minutes to give a prepared presentation. I've got some questions and topics of discussion prepared. I will put them on the projector once they are done. And then there will be questions and answers with the audience. But if you feel a need to interrupt anyone in the session in which we have prepared questions, you can do so and interrogate one of the panel members. That's no problem. So we decided we go from left to right. So it's all yours.
Okay, hi. I'm Glen. I'm from Sony, and I'm very glad to be invited to be here. I also, just a little bit of background quickly, I chair the technical committee in the DLNA, and in fact, I'm going to mention a little bit of that in my presentation for those who don't know what it is, because I believe it's going to be a foundation for allowing whoever to own the living room. By the way, if you're not married, and even if you are, it's more likely that the mortgage company owns your living room and every other house. So we didn't want to leave the married guys out. So I don't know if I got the grammar right on this, but in fact, for who owns the living room, you really got to say is who uses the living room. And you got to think about the people in the living room before you can actually determine who owns it. And I have an assertion that's going to be a little bit out of left field here. And that is that this issue is about the consumer and the content and the enjoyment of content in the living room or elsewhere. So while we're talking about the living room, I think we can all agree that we've got content on multiple devices that, we're blank. Oh, my picture didn't come through. Okay, so for 2 minutes here, imagine a picture of all the devices that you know about in a big circle, PCs, mobile phones, Xboxes, PlayStations, TVs, and they're getting content from sort of 4 areas of industry. One is from traditional broadcast, like you get today, your TV signals. One is from broadband, like you're hearing about IPTV and whatnot. One is from prepackaged media, like you know of DVD players and things like that. And the other is what we call from the mobile space, because you're seeing the mobile infiltrate the living room. The idea of coming in, having pictures on your phone and seeing them on your TV and printing them on a printer, for example. So how is that? In order to own the living room, it's got to be connected. And what I want to talk about for 2 minutes is just how is that going to get connected? And this is what DLNA is all about. If you haven't heard it, it's the Digital Living Network Alliance. And it's formed to make consumer-friendly home networks. It consists of IT, CE, and mobile devices. Content is shared between the devices from different manufacturers. It's a platform for the distribution of your personal content, now happens to be YouTube, and for actual paid for or commercial content and services, such as your DirecTVs, as your IPTV suppliers now, as HBOs and whatnot. So DLNA wants to allow all these things to happen. So this is at the very bottom. So this doesn't address who owns the home network. Anybody can now jump on this connectivity platform. And so just another little, what we do then is we deliver guidelines based on a framework of open standards to ensure the interoperability between manufacturers' devices, because we recognize that the consumer will not buy all one type of brand, although I'd like to push for that, but anyway. One of the things you have to do is you have to provide not just that they discover each other and talk, they also have to talk the same language. And basically in the living room, it's media formats. So we've gone to a lot of work to pick standardized media formats for that to happen. And then the next thing you'll see, and you'll start seeing products next year, is there's actually a certification program, much like Wi-Fi, so that when you see the logo, you've got some assurance that these things are going to talk, and then the retailers can sell these things with some assurance they're not coming back right away. So I want to end just with some observations to help talk about the owner. So, well, first off, I don't believe there can be one owner. So we can see if that's going to be hotly debated or not. The consumers will get their content, and this is the things you got to keep in mind. They'll get it from multiple sources based on things like cost, ease of acquisition, and flexibility. Just stop in your mind and think about the Apple iPod. Does it meet all these rules? No, it actually costs more, but you know what? It's got an ease of acquisition. People can use that. It's actually not that flexible, but they made choices based on some of these things. The question is, get that scale out and try to tell me which is the right weights to put on there. I want to talk about hot issues because I know there's a chip conference. I came to the first hot chips when I used to develop chips, and there's a lot of stuff that has to go in at the bottom lines to help us get the living room in a position to be owned, and that's some device interoperability, some talking the same language, talking some of the same interconnects and protocols. There is going to be service and support. Maybe that's not a chip issue, but we're seeing things like QoS on the home network, and how is everybody you talk to apparently is a QoS expert, but you only want one QoS on the home network, so I don't know how that's going to adapt. And one thing we can't forget about for any of our Hollywood folk here is DRMs. The protected content, they're deathly afraid of it leaving our living room and going out onto the internet. So we got to be able to have DRM interoperability, transcribe on the fly DRMs based on usage rules and the devices that it's going to go to. I think that's my 6 minutes. So I didn't actually say anything about Sony, but the gloves will be off when you start asking questions.
All right. My name is Eugene Shteyn. I'm with Hewlett-Packard now for 2 weeks. I work for Philips Electronics, Consumer Electronics, working on DLNA with Glen and other gentlemen on this panel. So what I will try to reflect on the living room as it's seen from the perspective of HP, and particular division that I joined is digital entertainment services, looking to ways to go into this new space and explore it and find some ways to add value to the people. But basically, living room today is owned by a couch potato. And what this couch potato does is basically, he or she is watching cable TV and DVDs. That's the reality. That's where people spend most of the time in the living room. Now, the interesting thing about, and the reason we are talking here about this whole situation about living room, because the revolution is happening outside the living room. Actually, all the stuff that's happening is outside of the living room. That's the paradox of the situation, where we have new types of content. We have digital audio and video services. We have blogs. We have social networks. We have vlogs. We have new ways for people to shop. You know, my wife recently went to a wedding, and my wife bought all her dresses and shoes on the internet. You know, it's an incredible, to me, this is the first time happened, and this never happened before. New devices, mobile phone, portable audio and video players, HD TV, you know, media PCs, you name it. It's another dimension of this whole revolution. And you have emergence of completely new types of networks that were never before here. Broadband, Wi-Fi. It's either LAN or wide area network. You see the effort that Google, for example, put in Mountain View. You have hot spots where you can basically access internet for free. You have 3G mobile, another completely different group of companies coming in and putting network infrastructure in. So you see those revolutions happening, but you see the living room is still there, and it's still owned by a couch potato. And the question is, what's going to happen? And when you see this chaotic situation outside, you can imagine that there's a huge potential for growth and disruptions. So if you zoom out a little bit, you see this house and you see this couch potato, and then you see, well, look, there's a PC and there's broadband coming from this side. Lots of content coming from this side. You also see, you know, gaming devices, mobile devices, younger generation, they're mobile, they're more mobile, they're moving around, they're not couch potatoes to such a, you know, to such a degree as previous generation, maybe, you know, those who can afford high definition TV. And also you have in the living room, you have people in living room, next to the living room, either office, they have another PC on a bedroom, so we have wireless network. People have more and more home offices where they bring wireless network into the home for work purposes, but guess what? This wireless network reaches in the living room. So in the whole situation, you have completely new, as Glen mentioned, you have network media. Potential for it. It still hasn't happened, but this is potential for disruption. That's where the value is going to be first in the beginning, just connecting those devices via the network. But the other thing is, if you really look into this, zoom out a little bit more, what you see is that the boundaries of living room in terms of content is also expanding. What you see is internet AV services. You either stream, download, or you share, you know, the huge success of, you know, YouTube. It's incredible, you know, they gather, most of the stuff that people are watching today is not so much, you know, the movies, which are protected by DRM, but the funniest thing that people put together on YouTube. Well, the other thing is people get mobile. They go places, they can connect via wide area network and ship this content, you know, either living room or, you know, they put it on the web. And another thing is you have hotspot Wi-Fi networks. Another way you can access your content and extend the range of your living room, which is basically, you know, either mobile device or portable devices. This is another huge opportunity to access content and connect from there. So what we see is emergence of the worldwide living room, which is not owned by a couch potato. And it's much more compelling story for all people who sit in this room. You still need to see how it comes together, but opportunities are all over the place. And of course, we have plenty of challenges. The opportunity, when I say opportunity, there are plenty of challenges. Bandwidth is still restricted. You know, you still have to pay, for example, mobile device, you pay through the nose, you know, for this bits coming through. Reliability. It's also wireless to stream wireless video. You know, it's not an easy proposition. Interoperability, as Glen mentioned, formats and DRM. You know, you have different camps that's still trying to find it out. Setup is a nightmare. I had to set up, you know, my Bluetooth to PC connection. It took me, you know, a good several hours, and, you know, I've done it before on other systems, and it's still a nightmare. And of course, growth opportunity, well, networking and processing infrastructure. You see those networks still need to be connected. The infrastructure is not there. Somebody has to understand all those bits that are coming through that have different priorities, et cetera, et cetera. Media devices, play out, and storage. We still cannot handle all those all those formats. HDTV increases, if you think about it, increases the amount of real estate on TV screen by a factor of 4 to 6. Nobody knows how to use it. Digital content packaging and delivery, if the service that's right now on the net, it has to figure out what kind of capability the client has. Is it going to be used on the PC, mobile device, on the TV? There's all kinds of things that need to be figured out. And the new user experience, with people still struggle how to deliver if you connect PC to TV, what does it mean in terms of 10-foot experience? What does it mean if I take this interface from the web to my mobile device? Very few people understand how to do that. So what we're trying to say is that this, who owns the living room, the question is a little bit, what we feel is that it's the worldwide living room. It's the whole ecosystem of devices that need to be connected. The content needs to flow, and the opportunity is there. It's wide open. There's no company right now that could say, we own the living room. There are consumer electronic companies. I think everybody's now looking for opportunity, and a lot of competition that goes on in the industry. DLNA is a good example. There are other initiatives there. But that's where we see the huge opportunity and ability to add value to all kinds of aspects of the network living room. Okay?
Oh, good evening. Thanks for staying out this late. Well, I'm going to talk a little bit about Microsoft products, but I don't disagree with my colleagues in the direction they're going. I'm also involved, and Microsoft is also heavily involved with DLNA and on the board of directors. Interoperability is very important, but we like things like DLNA because it also leaves plenty of room for innovation on top as it addresses low-level issues, device discovery protocols, which are very important. So there's still lots of things to do beyond DLNA, which we're doing as individual companies. Let's see, does that work? Yes. You'll be glad to hear, since we only have 6 minutes, I will not be going over all these products. I'll just take a sample. But we don't really have a monolithic program or one approach. We recognize different parts of the world, different parts of the United States have different ways of reaching the consumer in the living room. So we have a wide range of programs, whether it's game consoles like the Xbox 360, that can work as game consoles or network, to media centers, media center extenders. We're in IPTV trials now, which is very cool, like AT&T in San Antonio. We're involved with cable DVR software, and it goes on, but also very important, we're in the services business. And we think that combination of services and devices and software is an important advantage we can bring to help piece these very complicated things together so it makes it a little easier for the consumer. But we're still learning, like everyone else in the industry, how to make this easier for the consumer. So some of the things that are out there today is many of you already have seen at least our media center extenders, of which like Xbox 360, that's built in. And who owns the living room? Well, is a media center with a Sony name on it or HP name on it, or Dell, is that if it has our software, is it a Microsoft product? Is it a Dell product? I leave that to you. But I think we'll be in a lot of these devices helping to enable the consumer experience. And also, I think, as already touched on, it's not just about I have to tap through this. It's not just about the living room. It's about also how can you share content between multiple rooms. So this is an area that DLNA is helping. We are definitely building DLNA capability, things like our extender products, so that you can take content that comes in on a PC and remote it to buy a TV set into a TV set to enjoy that in another room. And I think that's part of, trying to make the connectivity setup easier, make the DRM disappear into the background so the consumer hopefully doesn't have to worry much about it. I can't promise they can never worry about it, but we're certainly working on that. We all know what happens if DRM is very intrusive. Consumers reject that and do other things. And I think we're having some momentum here. These aren't Microsoft figures, but endpoint technologies, but it does appear that people are now buying products not just to use them locally, but we are seeing that they're actually hooking them up and networking. And as we make it easier, the attach rate goes up. So I think one thing we can do is we can improve interoperability between our devices, but it is important, as my colleague said, to work with other devices. And it's still to be seen whether interoperability is just using a common connector. Most of our devices don't have proprietary TV connectors, right? But can we get the networking to work? What about the security and so forth? So there's a lot of things, a lot of challenges there left, but that's why we have to work together as an industry as well as continue innovating to find something that really touches on the consumer. Anyway, thank you.
I use the PC, so I know how to start the show. Sorry, Glen. Hi, my name's Alan Miss. I work for Samsung Electronics. Before I actually get into the presentation, I probably should also own up that I'm also associated with DLNA. I'm on DLNA board of directors, and I'm chair of UPnP Forum, which is a heavily associated technology. So some similar background there. A slightly different view, though. So this is a slide that you've seen from many of the other presenters, this dream of connected homes. And I agree with the other fellow presentees that it's not just about the living room, it's about all the things that go outside. There's the broadband services there on the left, cellular phones, clearly Samsung makes a bunch of those, cameras, washing machines, you name it. We want things in your home to be working together, not just in the living room. So that's a really nice dream, and you've probably seen that page way too many times. But the real question we're trying to answer here today is, well, who will own that dream? And it's a classic debate that's been happening probably for 4 or 5 years at least. Those with not very long memories will remember that there are various standards in the past have been trying to push to own the living room. OSGI, HAVI when it was created, Ginny, even UPnP when it was first created. And there are plenty of proprietary standards like the Microsoft, Apple work on iPod, etc., and other companies. And I think what we're seeing is today a continuance of that vision, that people are pushing point cases. You see telecos trying to control IPTV. You see companies trying to control DRM control points, lock-in of some variety, maybe a limited scope, proprietary DRM. There's a lot of ways of locking in DRM, as I think actually Glen alluded to. People trying to lock in on networks, maybe just one particular type of networking is allowed. There are lots of ways of trying to tie this in. And my angle, which hasn't really been mentioned by my colleagues, is if any of those guys win, you essentially break the dream. And the reason for that is you segment the market. So my dream diagram has been broken here. The automation vendors will do their own thing. They'll control it their own way. The IT guys will try and do it their own way because they want to lock in, I don't know, whatever it's to be, say, Ethernet type. Mobile guys will have their own DRM. Consumer electronic guys will do their own little way. And the service providers clearly is a big part of this picture. There are many providers. Each one tries to do their own thing. So the problem is that if any of these players in this large market don't talk together and don't get along, you're essentially breaking the dream because your devices that you've purchased and you expect to talk to each other will not talk to each other, even if they physically have the same connector or at least look like they should have the same connector. So we have to make sure that all these providers are moving together and in the same direction. So the solution, I would argue, being a standards person as well as a consumer electronics company, R&D representatives, is standards. And those standards have to be open standards. It's not a standard just for mobile phone companies or standard just for home automation guys. We need standards where all of those players play in that forum. And I've listed a few here on the right, which have very good coverage. UPnP Forum has 800 companies. covering content providers, car manufacturers, CE companies, you name it. DLNA also has a very good coverage of all types of players. And it's essential that you get all those types of players together, because if CE companies, let's say the CE companies here on this panel agreed something, the other members will be left out. And as soon as you do that, you're limiting the factor, because it's not really who makes the product, whether we're traditionally a CE company, a consumer electronics company, or IT or whatever. What it matters to you is, if I buy it, will it talk to my other devices that I want it to talk to? And that's the key. So open standards with good coverage. Wi-Fi these days pervades all types of segments of the market. And it should also cover the various levels of control. So control, AV, networking, DRM, potentially even some usability aspects. So having said that, and indicated that standardization is going in that direction, multi-party, cross-segment standardization, there are some open issues. As Glen alluded to, there's content issues, who owns the codecs, who owns the DRM. We essentially need open codecs. We need open DRM systems in order to make progress there. Because even though people have open devices with, say, open USB standard connectors, what's running over those things, or Ethernet connectors, is proprietary, say, Apple Fairplay. So that's not acceptable. Who owns the services that come into the home? So a lot of talk these days are how to get services into the home. Well, even if the home is open, maybe the services are not open. Who owns them? What format should they be? How do you make services useful for CE devices? Lots of open questions there. Another question, which I think actually a few panelists alluded to, is who's going to install it? Who's going to fix it when it breaks? So you might not actually care who owns it, but who's going to fix it? Because you just don't care. And there are many situations where you talk about Best Buy or the actual retailer that's actually the person that really owns your home, because they're deciding which products they're going to support when it comes to install and repair. And lastly, you need to get value. So one of the areas here about home network is, if you buy multiple devices, you need value. It's not just a matter of buying some devices, connecting them together. You want to do something useful, sync content, watch movies, or whatever. So we need to understand how to achieve that value to get those devices to work together. So I think it's looking good for open standards, but still there are open questions. And that's my presentation.
Bill Curtis with Dell, Digital Home Architecture. The obvious thing in response to this question is to say you own it. You own the living room. It's your stuff. It's your reading lamp, which, by the way, is still probably the central piece of electronic equipment in our room most of the time. But you don't own the programming. You don't own the content. You don't own the copyrighted stuff. And that's the focus of what I want to say to you today. By the way, I was really struck today listening to the great presentations during the day about all the wonderful new silicon that's under development. And I was kind of keeping score there. About 2/3 of the devices that, give or take a few, that were described today used television or multimedia of some kind as either a test case or the central purpose for the device. So this isn't just multimedia stuff that the PC guys and Microsoft is doing. This is affecting all of us. We're all making a big bet that people are going to want to enjoy television and multimedia content wherever they are. So of course I have to have the same kind of slide that everybody else does, which shows the big happy universe of any content from any source coming into a wide variety of devices where you can enjoy that content anywhere, anytime, on any device. But there's this little problem. Houston, we have a problem. It has to be done in accordance with the copyright owner's rules. The copyright owner really does own that stuff, and if you want to get access to that content, you have to obey those rules. So you own the PC and the CE equipment, but you don't necessarily own the programming. Copyright owners, studios, and record labels, they'll determine what you can and can't do. The aggregators and the service providers, cable, satellite, telco, they have to obey those rules too, because if they don't, they'll lose the right to carry the content. And then the PC and CE manufacturers, I happen to work for one of those guys, we have to comply, we have to be aware of all of these schemes, and the devices that we sell have to comply with enough of them to meet our customers' needs. And that's getting harder. So this whole thing is called convergence. At least that's the term we use at Dell. It's the idea of allowing a wide variety of devices to access all of the content that you want. And it's getting harder over time. Progressively higher protection standards come out for each new digital delivery mechanism. Remember VHS tapes? They had some Macrovision stuff on the output, but really not a very strong protection scheme. DVD, cracked in a week. Digital cable and satellite, much stronger protection, renewable, revocable, all kinds of important things there. And so they're getting content a little bit closer to the release window. So as time goes by, the quality of the content gets better, the release window goes up closer to theatrical, and you get a better experience, but the DRM technology has to keep up or the studios will crank it back the other way. And then Blu-ray and HD DVD, they're coming out soon. They're out now, really, with much more advanced content protection schemes that gets you pretty close to theatrical. But remember this, studios will prevent unauthorized redistribution of that premium content, and eventually all the user accessible points within the signal path are going to be secure. From the source through all of the platforms in between, all the way to the display and rendering device, it's all going to be nailed down. If it's digital and if it's high resolution content, it's going to be protected or you won't get the content in the first place. So here's the real issue. It's getting really complicated. Won't go through this slide. It's just an eye chart to show that the experience that you want to create on the right, that is, you want to view or listen locally or copy it or edit it or alter it or view it on your portable device or whatever, the rights to do that are determined by what type of content it is and how you obtain it. It's kind of the product of those two things. So every different combination carries with it a different set of rules. For example, if you buy a DVD of a movie, that carries one set of rights, one set of rules for how you can use it. If you record that same movie from a commercial television station, same movie, same scenes, same actors, different set of rules. And so as an equipment manufacturer, those of us at the table who are equipment manufacturers, we have to support the product of all of that stuff. And if we were to list out the total number of DRM schemes and link protection schemes, it would I wish I'd done that actually, it would be probably a little bit better. Because then you could see all the different things that we actually have to physically support in the products. So finally, what we're really after here is secure interoperability. We've done pretty good, as was stated before by other panelists, in getting the media format piece nailed down. So for YouTube content or for my pictures of my son's soccer game, no problem. You can watch it on a wide variety of devices. You can move it around. You can time shift it. You can save it as long as you want. Look at it on any device, no sweat. However, as soon as you turn on the content protection, it's a different world. And there are so many different schemes out there that it's kind of mind-boggling. For example, the example I give there is the FCC, a little over a year and a half ago, approved 13 different output protection formats just for broadcast flag alone. So, I mean, that's just broadcast flag. There's a lot more than that. So what do we do about this? We want to standardize the content protection methods, starting with the link protection scheme, and we're working with the DLNA. We're members of DLNA, have been since almost the beginning, and strongly support DTCP/IP as kind of the first hope of getting a link protection scheme nailed down that the entire industry can get behind. So that's a good start, but we're certainly not done yet. We want to recommend pushing back on new content protection schemes where there are existing robust and licensable schemes already in place, and that's most all the time. Fact is, you really don't need any more schemes than we already have. It's a matter of just standardizing on those that work, and there are plenty of them, unfortunately. And finally, the encryption algorithms, this is important at the silicon level. We want to make sure that we don't create more of them or require more of them than are absolutely necessary, because that really ramps up your gate count. So we want to go with stuff like AES 128 that's already out there, well understood, well implemented, highly optimized, and try to not add any more until absolutely necessary. Okay, thank you.
Good evening. My name is Yamada, and just let me touch upon my background. So I was working for Sony 34 years, and then I left Sony and to go to Kyushu, southern part of Japan, and working for collaboration with industry. And as I was working for Sony, and starting with analog TV and computer control TV and digital TV and the first ATV for here in United States. And so now I'm leaving from Sony, and I can speak anything. So if I were in Sony, so I have to, my presentation were fully censored. So today I'm very happy. So I try to follow this agenda. First one is standardization. Maybe my point is a little bit different from other presentation. And also I'd like to touch upon the difference between consumer products and PC products from TV engineering point of view. So standardization is really important for the key for success. Like TV, so analog TV has 3 different standards, NTSC, PAL, and CCAM. But so very much clear, and it's easy. And also PC has quite perfect standard, and record of LP and CD, DVD. So because of this standardization, so business become very, very happy. So standard makes good competition, sound competition, and then cost performance will be improved. So then the people pay a lot of products and more sales, then it encourage content creators, so more contents. So this is a kind of positive spiral. So using this leverage, so we can contribute a lot to each nation, say as like a tax or something like that. If the TV standards are different by each state or something like that, so it is really difficult for market to growth. And of course, the PC. And I think PC is very good because of USB and the PCI card. And yesterday, tutorial session, the presenter said, so physical layer is really important. I completely agree with this. So if anyway, so physically connected, so afterwards, so engineers can do something along with that. Even though same connector has audio signal or video signal or just a bit, anyway, so people or PC or machine can recognize the content or imagine. And then finally, they can decode the contents. It is important. So 5-layer is really important. And so regarding DRM issue, so I really happy to say less minimum and regulation. And copy-free is really important. But not totally free, but easy to copy is really important. So for instance, iTunes business success is they don't ask content provider or people to make it free, but appropriate money. So people understand that the appropriate money, it's a really a good match. So otherwise, like as a media, so it is strictly forbidden to make a copy. So like a copy never or just a move. So this is really an obstacle to average people, I think. So content, even the content creators want to be seen their products by many people. And so not all, but many people really thinks about that. So once they create a content, they are really happy to be seen by so many people. And we need to help them. And don't lose big business opportunity by looking at beautiful DRM systems. And country code like PlayStation or DVD. So just makes customers unhappy. So if I happen to find a very nice old movie title here in the United States, and the price is very reasonable, like $9 or something like that. And in Japan, so I couldn't find. But if I try to buy it, so I cannot see the contents in Japan. But this kind of regulation is not well work, because I can purchase $50 DVD player here in the States and bring back to Japan, I can see it. So this kind of country code or something like that, regulation, doesn't work well and makes people unhappy. And next is difference between every appliance, like a TV and a PC. So TV, starting with screen, vision, and sound. And so we look at contents made by others, mostly made by others. Sometimes we shoot a video camera, family issues, and then display on the screen. But mostly made by others' contents. And also a simple interface. IR blasters and connection must be quite simple, easy operation, user-friendly one. And compared to that, PC has tools for creating products and also solutions. But necessarily it is come with vision and sound, and also input devices. And consumer likes to watch and play. TV helps them to watch contents. User-friendly interface is really key. But unfortunately, today's digital TV has more than 60 keyboard switches on small IR blasters. Is this really kind for our customers? I don't think so. So, but so this means big business opportunity. If we can help them and we can create some good solution to avoid these nuisance issues, then people are very happy to buy our products. So, and regarding a PC or a game machine, so necessary complicatedness doesn't matter, because so they really want to play with it. So PC can be a kind of almighty solution for every appliance. Like so TV game, car navigation, IP phone, TV, digital audio, and DVD recorders. So these can be done by PC. And PC, of course, it can done PC-oriented work like Word or internet browsing, presentation materials. But PC can do almost every function of TV or consumer appliance. So PC's advantage is PC is a solution of any TV every appliance. So because it has standardized interface, I mean USB. So starting with very low bandwidth, but now USB 2.0. And so we can put a video and audio signal onto USB. And if necessary, so like a high definition signal, so USB people may increase this bandwidth. And compared to that, so every appliances, TVs, has a lot of physically different connectors, like RCA pin and F connector, coaxial cable. So these are analog one. And even in the digital, still they have 1394, DVI, and HDMI. And may create another different one. So to avoid this is really important. And also a PC, because of software, strengths of software, So a very quickest way of implementation, no hardware change, and good match for multimedia contents. And the conclusion is consumer owns the living room. So many people understand this one. And some people said, so father owned the living room, and some home kids own the living room. But anyway, so we have to make them feel happy or exciting them for a business success. Otherwise, we cannot get money from them. They don't care the inside of the TV. So it is made by PC or even an IC chip. So if they buy Sony TV, they don't care about the inside of the TV. If it has a Panasonic chip or Intel chip, customer doesn't care. Customer care about the picture quality, sound quality, and the user interface. That's it. Okay. So now my conclusion is TV's user interface by PC-like standardization. So this will be a success, and we can get money from our customers. Thank you.
I gave Professor Yamada a little bit more time because he can speak freely, as he doesn't represent the company, as he said himself. Let's go to the last presentation. Here you are.
So I'm James Akiyama. I'm with the Digital Home Group. I'm one of their principal engineers. And from our standpoint, who owns the living room, it really is you guys do, which is part of our customers. From a trend standpoint, what we see is that the internet is really changing the face of digital entertainment. The digital revolution has really caused more choices to the viewer. The digital world is now really the new frontier. Online is really becoming the consumer music source. In 2007, downloaded music will actually outpace physical media. And this, there's been a steady increase. It's a slow but steady increase in online gaming. It's been growing at about 71% over the course from 2005 to 2011 to 364 million units. And a large amount of ours is that the digital media is driving the growth of digital devices. In 2006, the sales of digital audio players have actually outpaced the sales of digital cameras. So from what we're seeing is an explosion in the digital entertainment area in terms of more media for TV shows, movies, games, photos, music, video, chatting, a lot of online content, and more places. People really want to extend the notion of entertainment outside of the living room to including the PC in the den, HCTVs in the living room, on portable music devices that you can take with you either into other rooms or even outside, and then on media players to go. Intel's digital home vision is kind of that consumers do enjoy entertainment, movies, music, photos, and games, and they really want to enjoy that anytime, anywhere, on any device. These could include devices in the home, which would include media and gaming from the couch. It may be streaming content around the home, syncing content to devices and taking it with you, taking the media and playing games on the go, and then a burn and go or sync and go strategy. From our standpoint, the digital home focused platforms include a mixture of CE, console devices and PCs, including digital televisions and set-top boxes, consumer PCs, and then notebook and handheld devices.
Okay, that was part 1 of the panel session. We seem to have one happy family of DLNA. These are some of the prepared topics and questions. Maybe we should start with the one which is least important for the companies which are present here. The last one, who earns the dollars? Where's the money to be made? I wrote down content providers, system software developers, hardware manufacturers. So there could be the IC developers, the box developers, service providers, Hollywood. So maybe we should start with that question and give you guys the opportunity to react to that. And then if there's enough questions from the audience, move to the audience. Yeah? So,
Sure. So,
Glen.
well, staying kind of on the opposite side of things then, well, nobody's going to make the money if these devices can't communicate to each other. So I'll let someone else go from there.
In my opinion, unless all of them make money, this is not going to happen.
Let me be a bit more specific here. If I would have $100 and I would like to invest it in a company which either makes contents, makes boxes, provides services, where should I invest?
Maybe you could repeat that?
If I would have $100 to invest, should I invest in a company who makes the ICs, the boxes? Should I invest in Hollywood? Should I invest in service providers? Should I invest in a Microsoft who makes an operating system for these boxes? Where should my money go?
Boxes, PCs in particular, definitely.
PCs? Dell says PCs. Oh, by the way, we shouldn't ask questions about power supplies and stuff like that. I promised.
Oh, invest in biotech. I mean, that's the surefire. I mean, people get older.
Sorry, Eugene?
Invest in biotech. But in terms of who's gonna make money, it's just a question at which point in time, because in the beginning people will rush, and consumer electronics companies had a ball, last year and this year when HDTV hit the stores, and once in the gear, I would expect, Cisco and other companies will make more money because they create the infrastructure. Unless the pipes go into the house, you're not gonna see those movies. That's basically it. And when the pipes are there, content providers are going to be rolling in the money because, well, that's all their stuff. People are paying. So it depends really on the timing when the infrastructure is there, when the content is starting to flowing, and of course, people who provide the infrastructure. DRM. If you really look into the marketplace, Microsoft is the only game in town in commercial distribution on DRM. So I mean, let's be realistic. So as other people, pick up in mobile space, OMO and other, it might change.
I don't think I fully agree. I'd look at Google's stock price to think where you might want to invest. And that's content. The problem is you got to figure out who's going to supply the content that people want. But definitely right now, it's all about the content that you get on any of these devices. And my earlier point was, though, we'll all make money at some level if these devices can talk to each other such that the market grows and consumers buy these things. When we have the one-off devices now, that stalls the market because it causes frustration, and then the consumers don't buy anything else.
Anyone else?
One other point to make would be, I think commoditization drives a lot of dollars here. So you'll have to ask yourself which one of the pieces of the puzzle is not easy to commoditize, because a lot of them are commoditizable.
Yeah, one more thought. There's kind of our research shows there's kind of a fixed budget for certain types of content, like very few people subscribe to both satellite and cable, for instance. And now with the telcos worldwide, not just in the US, really entering the competition for the monthly renewable, pay it every month and get large numbers of channels, open up a conduit for pay-per-view movies, that kind of thing, that business, then I think we're going to see some fairly fierce competition there, and it's going to, they're really just shuffling the deck chairs around. In other words, that's not creating new value. What it is they're going to fight it out between themselves. So that slice of the pie is increasing, but it's not increasing dramatically. And to Glen's point, I think he's absolutely right. If we can make the overall media experience better for everybody to where we really do achieve that vision that, by the way, was on, I think, 4 of the presentations, which is all your content anytime on any device, I think it'll just be a lot more pleasurable. I think people will enjoy media more and perhaps buy more of it, perhaps spend more time with it, and I think that's the rising tide that will lift all the boats. They'll buy more content and they'll buy more devices of all types.
Any other reactions? Maybe we should move to the mics. We've got 2 people. Why don't you go ahead?
One person said that it would be good not to irritate the customer, and only one person said that. And he was not working for somebody who is supporting DRM. And I think if you push DRM real hard, you're going to lose.
Well, I'll clap.
That means everyone agrees?
Well, I would applaud too, but I also like to watch movies and I like to watch premium content. And if you have a solution for getting us premium content without having to do DRM, then I'm all ears. And all we're saying, really, at least all I was trying to say is, if we can simplify DRM and get it to work correctly, it's better than not having any premium content at all. I would add that you don't need DRM for personal content. I think that I pointed that out.
I understand, but if you say that the content owners make the rules, first of all, you're out of line, because it's the FCC and the Congress and the courts that make the rules. Now, the companies try, and they try to do things that are quite unethical, and they try to eliminate fair use, and they do all sorts of terrible things. They want me to watch ads on a movie that I purchased. No way. I'm not going to do that.
If enough people agree with you and don't watch the movie, then it won't happen.
Then you're going to lose.
No. If nobody watches their content and nobody buys it, then they'll quit doing that.
Exactly. Now, I found that the TiVo was wonderful. And if you make it not work, I won't use it.
Well, I think it's possible, well, it's not necessarily easy in all cases, but some of the early limitations of DRM are intrusive. But I think if a consumer, well, I think you can make it more transparent. If you buy a high definition disc and you have the opportunity to network it through the home, it may be protected, but as long as you can do everything you want to do with it, maybe you're okay. But I think it's a consumer decision as whether they want to consume content that has commercials and maybe get the content for less money or for no money, or they want to pay a different price and maybe skip the commercials. But I think those are business model decisions, and I think it's our job to implement the technology to maybe give the flexibility, and over time, you know, consumers will show their choice. So I respect the decision that you don't want to waste your time watching a commercial, but maybe someone else will rather pay less money or pay no money for, you know, XM radio or something, you know, type service. And so there's alternatives out there for business models that we can support.
I would also separate the business discussion from the technology discussion, because I just want to give you an example. Our local library, Santa Clara Library System, they allow download of digital books, and they are protected by DRM. But guess what? You go to the library, you download the book, and then when you start playing it, it goes and acquires the library. I log in, I give my number of my library card, and I get the content. I can play it, I can check it out. It's no different. So there's a business model discussion, whether there's a business model that allows you to use it at your convenience, or there's a business model that tries to, squeeze money out of you. So those are two different discussions. There is opportunity, I think, for people who want to get free content, there will be libraries. For people who want to content, quickly and the time when they want, you pay for convenience. I think it's very as simple as that.
Okay. If you want to be unpopular at parties, just say you work on DRM.
I think someone made the remark that there were a lot of presentations on video processing ICs. Maybe I should put my money on companies making ICs for digital right management.
If you can do it fast.
I didn't hear anything of those today. Let's move on to the left side, to the next question.
Yes, hi. I think I've already seen the future, and I don't really like it. I was recently in New York staying at the Mandarin Oriental at the Time Warner Center, where the cheapest room is $569 a night.
Yeah.
And,
Can you speak up a bit?
It's a technology demonstration hotel. If you've ever been there, they have these beautiful HD TV Samsung displays in every room. They've got media center PCs. I think they're made by HP. I'm certain they have an Intel inside. I left my television going at night, and I fell asleep. At 2 in the morning, I woke to an incredibly loud noise. These beautiful speakers were blaring out at the absolute top volume. I thought that the world was coming to an end. Perhaps another attack was occurring. And then I looked up and I noticed that the blue screen of death had appeared on the Samsung television. I searched for Control-Alt-Delete on the remote.
You're getting to the question, right? Eventually.
I then had to move this 500-pound console away from the wall to find the plug, because there was no other way to power cycle the thing. Remember, this noise was going at about 120 dBs the entire time. What in the world is going on? Why do people think that you need a PC in a television set? I mean, who needs it? Who needs all of that complexity that's going to crash?
I think that's one for Dell.
Oh, sure. Give me the easy ones.
I can give it to Eugene as well.
Actually, I'm not going to disagree with anything you said. And in fact, although I personally have a PC hooked to my TV and enjoy it, I like YouTube, stuff we download from the internet and that sort of thing. I also recognize, as does probably everybody in the room, that simple fixed function devices are inherently always going to be more reliable. There's no question about that. So that's what DLNA is all about. That's really kind of why I think most of us are sitting up here, is we see an ecosystem of devices that talk to each other and let you select whichever device you want to put on your TV. What we want to do is open up the gates so that, bad choice of term, open up the network so that you can move content around freely and use whatever device you want.
But I think it actually was much simpler. You just couldn't find the reset button. If you could find the reset button, it would be much easier. No, but realistically, nobody really requires you to have a PC. It's your choice. And supposedly in the nearest future, when you have storage and you have those services, you'll get it directly to your TV. I personally, I don't see any problem with that. And it's a scenario that fits consumer electronics companies, fits PC manufacturers, traditional, and who doesn't agree with that? I think everybody understands that eventually you'll get different ways to get the content into the home in whatever way you want. It's just a question, what kind of device do you want to use?
Yeah, I'll just add that the consumer is evolutionary and not revolutionary. So what you're seeing is some revolutionary product, bringing the PC into the living room, and if it doesn't meet their expectations, they get somewhat annoyed. I believe that a PC can become part of the living room, or it'll be software that runs on a PC hidden in a box called a media server, perhaps. But then back to Bill's point, it's only one of the many devices that'll be connected. So perhaps at least you'll still have control of your TV to switch to a different device when you get the blue screen of death.
We have automatic detector of blue screen of death. It just shuts down.
Yeah, maybe James, maybe you can address how Intel is addressing this user-friendliness aspect of a PC-based product.
And actually, we agree that the connected devices is all devices, right? It is a complement of CE devices, game consoles, and PCs, and it's really up to the user. There's certain applications, MySpace and YouTube, which kind of require PC-level complexities, and it comes with less reliability, right, potentially. But there's other usages where you're just passively watching content, where CE devices would probably be the choice.
let's move to the next question. Yeah.
The question I have is, the NTSC transmission standard has been around for like 55 years or more now.
I didn't get the standard, sorry.
The
sorry.
NTSC, color television standard. The HD TV resolution requirements exceed that and will cause havoc in probably a short period of time. The question I have is, after listening all day long to the kind of magic chips that are in consideration, why can't you use frame organized compression to greatly reduce the bandwidth requirements such that you can send an HD TV signal over the air, perhaps in the NTSC bandwidth availability? This would eliminate the need for many of the contrary type of service providers you guys would like to feed a lot of dollars to.
I think you've got a number of issues there. But if you just want to stick on the broadcast issue, I mean, that's one source of content, but that's everybody has to get to that content with no choice other than changing channels to the available channels, say, over the air. And, you know, with ATSC, you get now compressed video, and you get more channels on the same bandwidth as you do on an NTSC channel. So that's already deployed. And in fact, by 2009, there will be no more NTSC as you know it, because it'll all be digital, moving to ATSC. But the point here is choice. That's one. You know, I had a circle, but you didn't get to see it, but everybody else had the circle anyway, so that was kind of cool. And it says there's more choices now with connectivity to give you other places to get the content and when you want it, as opposed to when they're going to broadcast it. And I think that's where you got to look at why we're trying to connect all these devices and how and where you're going to get your content. Back to the living room that's where a lot of people congregate to do one thing, and that is enjoy some content. And so we're seeing a focus on how do you get that content to the living room TV tonight, but we've also mentioned that we think we might want to watch it on our cell phone or our PlayStation or whatever. And so that's what we're also here about, is just we've been talking, what do you need to do to enable the living room to get that content, and then who's going to be the most successful in it? You know, we don't have any service providers here today. They've got some pretty interesting opinions because they subsidize the hardware that goes into your house, a set-top box perhaps. And so they might think they control your TV because they gave you a set-top box. It'd be interesting to hear thoughts on that.
Next year for the panel session. Let's move to the other side.
It seems to me that there are basically two givens here. That the house has to have some point to coordinate the thing, some box. The only box that can do everything is the PC, so it's going to be a PC. And this PC has to have an operating system, and the only operating system that can do everything is Windows, so it's going to be Windows. And everybody else has to arrange themselves around these two givens. Look at Steve Jobs. He lost the box, he lost the operating system, so he did iTunes and the iPod to work around it. And all you guys are going to have to do the same thing. It's going to be a PC, and it's going to be Windows. Sorry.
I guess we're done.
Yeah, okay, now I know where to put my money.
That's the end of the panel session.
How much do you pay?
No reactions?
Well, it's an opinion. I mean, certainly we're not investing everything in just Windows operating systems. We recognize that there are embedded OSs, many different form factors, many different models for business providers to bring content to the home or get content from the home outside the home. So certainly we like the idea of a PC being a server, and we're supporting that, but we recognize, well, we have a new Project Zune, right? So we see different, we recognize there are different approaches. So, but glad you like Windows.
I didn't say I like it.
There are other things out there.
You guys have to rearrange yourselves around these facts.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
I didn't say I like it. I said this is the future, and you guys have to rearrange yourself around these two givens.
I think you have to break the content that's coming into the house down into some categories. My mom, for example, she couldn't care less about the stuff that we do with with the PC in terms of content search. So more advanced people, they're beginning to see the future. They're looking at video is moving to the internet, and it's all about search now. It's not necessarily about channelization and channelized delivery over cable and satellite and off the air. So we're seeing this kind of new world emerge of new sources of video, and I agree there that having a keyboard and a mouse is really handy when you're trying to do search terms and stuff like that. It's really constraining to use a little infrared remote. So there's some things the PC is just naturally better at. As we figure out this DRM thing we've been talking about, and we want to kind of have a Geneva-like experience where you can manage content and distribute it where you want it. PC is great for that. PC is the cheapest storage you can get. So PC's got a lot going for it, I agree. And Microsoft provides a platform that lots of people can play on, and it's in all the houses already. So got that. But there's also a lot of other ways that people enjoy media. And like my mom, she's not going to be interested in that. She just wants to push the on button and watch TV, and she'll maybe go to the TiVo level with some kind of a DVR box, but that's about as far as she's going to go. So there, we need something else. In other words, we need a way to bridge those two worlds together so you can have it either way.
Yeah, there's nothing that says you have to use a PC with a mouse and a keyboard.
Oh, that's true. That's true. I agree.
But he just said that his mother likes the TiVo box, and I don't know, is there a Windows in there? I don't think so, right?
Linux.
Is there an Intel CPU in there?
Yeah, TiVo's Linux, that's correct.
Right.
I'll only go as far as to say there's going to be video servers, and a PC can be one of those, and so can many other types of boxes.
Right. I would second what Glen says. I mean, to some extent, the standards we've talked to you about today do cater for the situation where a PC is one of those sources, even one of those renderers, right? So it's not like CE companies are going to have to get used to something new. That's part of the assumption that we make. We need to deal with IT companies as well as all the other pieces of the puzzle.
So you think the consumer is going to buy 2 boxes?
I didn't get the reply.
So you think the consumer is going to buy 2 boxes?
They're logical boxes, whether they're 1 box or 3 boxes, doesn't really matter. If you want to buy a TV with the PC in, go ahead.
Can we move to the next question? Is it okay? Yeah. Okay. Yes.
Yeah. So maybe this my misapprehension comes because of the title of this talk, which I know we sort of gave to you guys. But it just seems to me a little odd in that if there's one thing that's been absolutely clear over the last couple decades of electronics is that it's moved from a single shared resource to everyone having one of whatever it is they have, so it's with them to the extent they can afford it, right? I used to work at Bell Labs. We used to worry about how many phone lines went to a house, right? About the time cell phones really came in, right? I have some experience with teenage nieces, and they are about as untethered as you could possibly get, right? And they could care less what's in the living room, right? So I guess my question is, what's your trade-off between the living room is the place where people aggregate and always under single control versus it's a place where some people happen to be some of the time, but what they care about is often with them. I mean, look at the amount of storage you can get with you, and it's pretty huge. So what's your trade-off? I mean, are you talking about the living room because we asked you to, or is that where your focus is?
Well, since I was lucky enough to go first, I think you saw, I don't believe it is the living room. And in fact, to your point, it's people want their content wherever they are. I've done 200,000 miles on an airplane this year. And it's not, what is it? It's only month 9. I've got a big screen TV, probably bigger than most of you guys got. I never get to watch that thing. Right now I'm running a Sony product called Location Free TV on a Mac, by the way, for you Mac guys. They have a client out for that. So, I'm watching TV that has been recorded on a TiVo in my living room in, last night, Beijing. So, again, it's about, so I agree with you. So maybe these guys should answer, because I think it's about getting your content wherever you are. The living room is still one of the most comfortable places to enjoy it. And also, when you're in your living room, I found that's all you really want to do, which is another interesting point of whether or not you're going to surf the TV while your wife's trying to watch it. Get a laptop,
Yeah, I mean, the whole, I think some of the presentation went into that, and we went well beyond living room. I think the concept of worldwide living room, and as Glen said, a lot of people are moving, from one place to another. It's just impossible to have your content on one screen. There are some people who do that, many people don't. And as lifestyle, I think we spend less and less time in the living room. I almost don't watch TV at all. So there's always something to do, something else. You know, there's internet, and the TV, hours spent on TV are actually dropping. Watching TV are dropping. So people don't watch PC, they watch their content, they try to interact with other people. So it's not only, you know, watching something, interaction with other people, you know, communities and you know, being mobile devices. If you look into 3 years from now, most of the content will be consumed on mobile devices. So I think it's also a very important trend that we need to realize.
I think the jury's out on what people want on small screen mobile devices, but I think more people will consume content in that form factor. Don't know if it'll be the same content as the living room. Sometimes it may be, but it may be other things. But I think the nice thing is a lot of things we're talking about tonight don't have to stay in the living room. They can be mobile. They can go to other rooms. They can go outside the home. They can be consumed in other ways. So the consumer has choices, and I don't think we're fixated on a model that just says only enjoy it in the living room, even if that's the room with the best screen. You can enjoy it where you are.
Okay.
I would just back that up by, I think you heard us all talk about the network, in actual fact. We talked about wider than that, but we didn't really talk about the living room, we talked about the network. And the advantage of the network is you can get your stuff wherever you may be, on whatever device. So I think that is a key enabler.
Yes?
So that's a good lead-in, because I just wanted to call bullshit on a lot of this discussion, since I keep hearing about standards and I keep hearing about I get to get whatever I want, wherever I want, whenever I want. Yet we've just lived through HD versus Blu-ray, and I just heard the esteemed gentleman from Microsoft say that he's going to take standards and then he's going to add additional functionalities on top of it. And that sounds a heck of a lot like IE versus Mozilla. And all of that just sounds to me like, quite frankly, we can do it technically, but nobody has the business model wherewithal to actually play together. So how's it all going to happen, folks?
I guess I better start this since you threw that at me. So we're still, of course, living through Blu-ray and HD DVDs, so I won't dwell upon that one. But, you know, I think our concern would be, right now, if we were going to standardize something like a user interface, what the heck would we standardize? I think there's a lot of room for improvement. And what comes out of there today, I'm not sure would be the right solution for the consumer 5 years from now.
Then why are we talking? I mean, come on, let's quit playing games here. Either it's a standard or it's not. Don't say you want a standard, but then I want my own version of the standard. It's not.
Consumers don't buy typically standards. People who work in standards groups like to talk about standards as the solution, but I think there's a lot of indications that consumers are buying for other things other than just standards. I think people like interoperability. That's a good thing. But they're buying a complete package at times. And so I'm just saying it's not sufficient just to have some standards interoperability. That's a useful thing. It helps us buy common components. It brings the cost down, helps you hook up to a TV or audio-video home theater receiver. But you can't... we don't think you can put all your weight behind a standard, that you need to do things on top of that to build a better product. Standards and alliances like DLNA are bringing themselves up, adding more value, but you know, I think it's hard for a committee of many companies to come up with the right solution that'll be robust for 5-10 years. So some of the technologies that consumers will like the best and experiences and services will not come out of the standards group. Some of it will, but some won't.
There's a fine line here. Let's use your Blu-ray HD as the example. First of all, you've got to innovate. If we can't have innovation in any area, then we will have a big problem. You guys won't be here because we only need one chip designer. You know, we only need one drug company making drugs. But let's take that HD Blu-ray then and say, okay, so now you got a fight going on for some proprietary technology. But guess what? They're both network enabled. And guess what? Any TV from Samsung, Sony, HP, Dell, what have you, you'll see that Blu-ray or HD content on it. because the standards for the protocols to go over the network to allow these devices to communicate will be there. So yeah, you're right. It sounds like there's a big fight in the industry. It's over some proprietary technology with a lot of IP behind it, but you've got to allow that kind of innovation to continue. And at the same time, once it gets into the consumer's home, so they picked one, and the biggest decision they have to know is when they go to Hollywood Video or Netflix that they order the right kind of disc. But they know they're going to see it or be able to get that content around their network. So I hear your pain because we're not there yet, and we've been blowing, smoke up somebody's butt. But we're working on it in order for the market to grow.
Yeah, we've done a pretty good job, I think, as an industry on the media format piece, right? I mean,
Yeah.
we've got pretty good interoperability there, and as I pointed out a minute ago in my talk, DRM is really kind of where it doesn't completely fit together, and it's business reasons, it's stuff like that. Basically, you got the cable company with end-to-end content deals without which they don't get any content, and they're not based on standards right now. Well, they have their own, right? Satellite guys, same thing. Apple, you can say, did the same thing with the iPod, and there are others out there that I think are on the way that are going to do sort of the same thing. So we're still learning. We're trying to figure out the DRM thing, and it's going to take a while. Right now we're at the point. Here's the status. Right now we're at the point where you've got line of sight to link protection. What that means is that when you play back content on a device, you can stream the output to another device in the home, and that's about as far as we've gotten so far with DRM interoperability. So good point. I assume that didn't answer his question.
He laughed. Oh well.
Well, we tried.
Jill?
So I'd like to hear a little bit more about interoperability here just for a second, because I just went through this exercise of saying, suppose I wanted to scope out the ability to route several different zones of audio to my house and places outside, my different rooms in the house and so on, and I wanted to route video from living rooms to and so on, and I kind of tried to find out what solutions were out there that had some manner of cohesion to them. And the home automation folks have done this for years. You talk to them and they start bringing up structured wiring that has 12 different cable types and central routing boxes at some point in the home. And and now like I said, I've been looking at this very recently. You've got a zillion different physical standards, HDMI, you got all these different, video carrying standards, you got audio standards, and it seems like an impossible task that this would ever get to the point where you could just plug things and route them anywhere. Now, that being said, it seems silly to me that, we've got IP and we've got really high-speed routers, and it just seems obvious that it ought to be the case that everybody just ought to be getting behind that as the lowest link layer and building protocols. And I'm hoping that you guys are going to tell me that's what's happening, but watching what's going on, I just don't see that happening. I see a bunch of unrelated, uncommunicating, interesting and fun devices that are just a pain to interoperate. And I don't see this vision of the living room ever coming together.
Well, I hope it will. The point is, what you see is today, and that's why we formed, since we're all DLNA members here, bar one, that's why we formed DLNA 2 years ago. And let me tell you, interoperability is hell. Everybody comes to the table with their version of interoperability. I really just want a shirt with blood dripping down it from the 2 years of people in their own companies becoming educated on what it means to connect two different manufacturers' devices together. So everything you've talked about is point-to-point type solutions, and there's many of them. We as a CE industry have done a lot of bad things. We're responsible for the uncontrolled breeding of remote controls. I mean, next morning there's another one on your table. Every time you buy an AV receiver, it's got more connectors, but we didn't take any off. So DLNA has formed to address this issue. It's starting to nurture itself, mature itself. But it's slow because we brought the consumer up on a point-to-point system, and no one has home networks. What they have is PCs connected to the internet. I'm talking mass consumer here, and most of us are trying to address the mass consumer.
No, I understand.
Right now, today, I believe your only solution is in a couple of weeks to go to Cedia and get the $70,000 solution, and that's the problem.
Actually, see me afterwards, and I'll tell you what I've been playing with in my house.
Well,
and it actually does work. It is completely standards-based, and there's a little bit of value add layered on top, just like Bob suggests. So in other words, they started with the standard, so it'll work DLNA all the way, and they have a beta test kind of a thing that they're doing on this device that enables synchronization between the devices. And so I've got 3 of these things in the house now, and they work pretty darn well. So there's hope. There's at least one standards-based player that's making an audio device that's capable of synchronization, and it's 99.9%
What's the link
standards-based.
layer here? Is this IP or?
Yeah, it's all IP.
Yeah, it's a wireless.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. So,
yeah, it's completely standards-based, network standards-based on the back end, the whole thing.
Maybe we should quickly plug, since none of us even put the pointer, but it's a lot of information available at www.dlna.org, and it's basically an IP-based interoperability model.
And you're going to do 1080p? I mean, is the idea?
Oh
to
yeah,
do
all the media
everything?
formats are defined.
Okay, that sounds good.
Okay,
When
so
am I 2010, 2020? I mean, when do I expect this?
No, it's for the music stuff, it's working pretty well right now, and the stuff's been on the market for what, about 2 years?
I've got 3 more people at the microphones now. I want to give all of them the opportunity to ask a question, but maybe you can keep the answer short, because someone is pointing out that we want to finish before midnight. So the next question.
Okay, I had a couple of quick technical questions and a short business model question. So since everybody is a DLNA person, and I think the gentleman from Samsung mentioned OSGI, where do you sort of see things like that? Sort of OSGI is still sort of at least semi-live and kicking, from what I could tell. So I'd like your perspective on where these other things stand. And I guess for the...
Well, I presented DLNA to OSGI last year. OSGI would sit on top of a network. OSGI is services-based, and what OSGI needs to run is a network, and DLNA is one of those models to actually enable OSGI services.
A lot of the OSGI work these days is also focusing on some interesting small areas like autos, mobile, so it's not dead, but there's also some interesting work in gateways. There's a standards body you may have heard of called HCI, HGI? HGI. That's looking into gateway-style functionalities. So the gateway is still important, just it's evolving forward as with all the other standards.
Okay, two more short questions and short answers, please. I'm sorry, we're running out of time here.
So in terms of the...
As in the next question.
Right.
Sorry.
Yes. So the next question was, since a lot of the companies here are sort of at least global in nature, there's a different dynamic, as you were mentioning, with the cable companies sort of giving you the set-top box for free and sort of then charging it as a mortgage over the years. But that's not necessarily the case, say, in some other parts of the world. So where do you see that sort of evolving, and sort of how does that play into the technology?
I would argue that, again, it comes back to the customer, which we talked about earlier. And the customer is not only just you and I, but also the content providers, etc. So there's a lot of space for all those different business models. It just depends on the customer. And in the right market, the right business model thrives.
Okay.
Quick question on the standards versus timing. Having embroiled in standards efforts sometimes people try to standardize stuff too early before it's well understood, and sometimes it's too late after there's already multiple competing ones and they never go away. Can you sort of characterize where you think you are? Are you in the right place in the middle? Are you early? Are you way late? I mean, where are you?
That's an easy one. Let's go from the left to the right, and the answer is either early, late, or right.
Middle. Well, you said middle, right? We're in the middle.
Yeah. Next.
I think we're still early. I mean, realistically, there is no network infrastructure in the house that's capable of transferring video. So I think we're still looking for early adopters.
No, he's asking what? Okay, never mind.
There was an early.
Okay. I think, well, at least with DLNA, we started out with something kind of proven, and at least on small scale, and now we're starting to move a little bit ahead of at least standard components. So, so I'll go with middle.
Yeah, that's
middle. Sorry.
I unfortunately would agree with Glenn and Bob. I think we're in the middle. I think you see, there are quite a few certified DLNA devices these days. So we're getting there. Clearly, there's early adopters are taking on that middle, but it's getting there.
As you heard from some of the questions, there's a lot of frustration. We feel it as we talk to our customers. Why aren't you guys going faster? So you'd think the answer would be late. The problem is I think we're trying to move faster than we should. I think it would be better to rewind a little bit and to focus on the very basic standards that just get the base functionality out there and get that nailed solid and then build out from there. So I think we're late to do the basic stuff, and we're trying to push too far into the future too fast, and we're leaving the UI and the usability behind.
I can say so. The customer, I hope customer will accept our proposal in terms of DLNA. So otherwise, so nobody will success, and less regulatory issues, and try to make them happy through attractive content.
And I'd agree with most of the other comments, and I think we're kind of in the middle as far as solving, there's other issues to resolve in terms of the networking, the overall system performances and reliability, content, the digital content side. I think we're about in the middle where all of this stuff is coming together.
Okay, thank you. Last question of today.
I've just want to relate that I've had a terrible experience with this. I have a 1080p beautiful television, and I have a PC that I bought and equipped especially to hook up to it. There are 4 physical channels that can connect between those 2 devices. 4! None of them will work correctly.
That wasn't a Dell PC, was it?
Okay, I guess we're early then, is that what?
Talk to me afterwards.
Okay, I think that's it, right? I'd like to thank the panel members again.
Okay.
And have a good night.